Rangers fans, welcome to Liberty Blue, the essential New York Rangers podcast. I'm Andrew Chelney, alongside Nick Zararis. And Nick, it is that time of the year where we do season previews. We did all the division previews. Now we have our main squeeze to do. It is time to preview the 2024-25 New York Rangers. But really quick, off the bat here, today, or do it by ourselves, the two of us, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, we have the legendary, of course, the voice of the New York Rangers, Sam Rosen, once again joining us to preview the Rangers as well.
So, yeah, I know a lot of people have been jokingly saying it's the last dance because of Trouba and the Shesterkin contract. It's actually the last dance because it's Sam's last season. Let's be honest here. It's going to be a very weird and surreal feeling. I know the Rangers will do a nice job when we get down towards the end. I'm sure whether it's this season or next season, they will have a night for Sam, whether or not they hang something for him at the Garden, what have you. But this is it, man. We have been culminating. It's not quite. It wasn't our intention to line up the launch of a podcast with like the window of contention, but that's kind of how it's gone. Where that first year, they kind of come out of nowhere. They make the conference final. 2 years ago, they come into the season way too confident and fall on their face and don't have a good regular season and then don't play well against the Devils. And then this past year, they pull the ripcord on the coach after 2 seasons, a year after he won Coach of the Year. They bring in a coach that nobody was excited about, us included. We were at least arguing, hey, if we're going to go into this with kind of uncertain expectations, let's at least roll the dice on somebody who doesn't have a track record of things falling apart after 2 or 3 seasons. And look, we're all aware that Laviolette teams typically after the first season start to have a gradual decline, but this is as talented a Rangers team as there's been. I was doing some research earlier today. Shesterkin's already played with more guys who have had 80-point seasons than Lundqvist did in his entire career. And Shesterkin's only been in the league for 5 seasons. So we're doing something right. We are gradually improving here. You've got a Norris Trophy winner. You've got a multi-time Hart finalist. You've got somebody who's a former first overall pick who's burgeoning out maybe to 70, 80 points. You've got Zibanejad and Trocheck who should be able to push for point per game paces. You have a multi-time Vezina finalist, a one-time Vezina winner. There's more than enough talent here. You have a healthy Filipino. Fingers crossed it stays that way.
Right.
You've got a former second overall pick who, coming off of an injury-plagued season, is not far removed from an 18-goal season. This is as good a Rangers team on paper as we've had. You know, we talked about this a week after free agency. On paper, this is a better team than what they went into the first night of last season with. There is no Nick Bonino here. Don't get me wrong, Sam Carrick is not very good, but he's not nearly as bad as Nick Bonino. Nick Bonino, he got put on waivers and wasn't even given like an AHL flyer by any team.
Well, he said no.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go down the AHL because he wanted to get an NHL deal with somebody else. But he was so like he
was done.
He was so like, and everybody knew it because he didn't get a second contract.
Yeah.
Like, he did not play in the NHL after that.
Yeah,
he did not go down to the AHL because he bet on himself. He was like, I don't want to go down to Hartford. I want to still play in the NHL. He did not get that opportunity because he doesn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this is on paper, this is much better. There's no Blake Wheeler. There's no Nick Bonino. There aren't guys that are here, you know, on a please give me one more chance to prove myself type of deal. This is it. And we said this last year as well, but they're essentially running it back this season with Riley Smith instead of Blake Wheeler. So this is objectively at the top 6 level, at least, a better team than it was last year. I would much rather have Riley Smith on my top 6 than Blake Wheeler at this stage of his career. That's not a surprise to anybody. That shouldn't be a hot take to anybody either. So on paper, this is it. This is the best roster this team has had. Now it's up to everybody, especially come playoff time, to get the job done.
So that's where we can start this conversation. We're going to go position group by position group. We'll talk about the front office. We'll talk about the coaching staff. But we said last year on this episode, the goal was to make at least the second round of the playoffs, and that would be considered a reasonably successful season. They have the best regular season in a 98-year history of the franchise. They put together multiple career best campaigns. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, all career years. Kreider's a handful of points off of his career best. Zibanejad not, but you know, lots to discuss there. We'll get there. But last year, about everything you could possibly have goes right. Jonathan Quick has 10 wins by December, which wasn't really expected. Jonathan Quick's preseason last year was horrendous. It was like
Yeah.
808 save percentage in the preseason. So the fact he was able
Hasn't
to
looked too
come in.
much better this preseason than 802.
Yeah, but after last year, I'm willing to at least say, okay, the
I
preseason
agree.
doesn't matter all that much. And the team he's playing behind. I know there's a preseason game tonight against the Devils. The Devils' actual team is over in
Prague.
what country?
They're in
Europe?
Prague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're over there to play the Sabres in an international game, but the Devils are playing a bunch of AHL guys, and the Rangers are playing a bunch of AHL guys, and Jonathan Quick. There are guys on this team who were probably born after Jonathan Quick's NHL debut. I do need to go fact check that. I didn't get a chance to do that before we started. But the expectation is more or less the same. And I know you're going to say, well, Nick, they went to the conference final last year. How is that not the expectation again? And the framing I use when I talk about this, if you are one of the last 8 teams, more often than not, if things break right for you, you can make it happen. And that's the way I'm looking at it here. The teams we see that get eliminated in the first round, for the most part, they aren't even close. Occasionally, you have a team like Vegas last year where they very well could have eked out against Dallas. But for the most part, we're talking about of the 8 playoff series, usually 6 or 7 of them, the winners rightfully go on and they look like they belong in that second round. Right now, and I made the same argument when I was talking about the Oilers over the weekend with somebody. It's wide open. It is as wide open as it's been. I truly don't think there are any great teams on paper right now. You look at the last handful of seasons, that Vegas team 2 years ago, that Bruins team 2 years ago, the Avalanche 3 years ago. There were some great teams on paper, but coming into this season now, all of those teams have had significant brain drain. They have lost a lot of quality players over the last handful of seasons for cap considerations, and the Rangers are facing that this upcoming summer. This will be the season the Rangers need to re-rack and reconfigure their roster. And with that in mind, there has never been a more clear opportunity. We said that going into the playoffs last year. The East was pretty wide open. The only team we were really scared of was Florida, and justifiably so. Florida was a better team. They went on and won the Stanley Cup. But on paper, they are as good, if not better, than anybody in the East. And I would argue maybe only Dallas and Edmonton are better in the West. Maybe Vancouver, if Thatcher Demko's healthy, but that's a massive if right now, being that he still doesn't have a timetable to a return to hockey activities.
The Boston Bruins don't even have their starting goaltender.
This is true.
Jonas Korpisalo has been confirmed to be the starter of Game 1. That's how far apart those discussions with Jeremy Swayman is. I wanna highlight this again for everybody that's watching, listening, whatever. A head coach in the NHL will never, ever, ever confidently say a goalie is starting Game 1 in these kinds of situations unless contract negotiations are galaxies apart. Clearly, because there's 8 days before regular season starts.
Bruins are either, I think they're on the 9th, but they might be the 10th. No matter what, it's next week.
A week, 10 days, whatever it is. They have a lot of time to still hammer this out. And the Boston Bruins are already saying Korpisalo is the Game 1 starter. That should tell you a lot about what those conversations are like right now behind closed doors. And that is not a good sign if you're a Bruins fan. So on top of the Panthers potentially not looking as good as they were last year. Maybe they did lose a couple of good pieces that they might recuperate come trade deadline time. We don't know, but there's certain teams like the Devils that we talked about that we're really high on, but they have to put it all together. They have to put it all together for us to be genuinely concerned about. This team has done it. They've been there. They've done that. Yeah, I mean, Riley Smith hasn't been here, sure, but for the most part, this is the same team. So if anything else, this team has been through the wars and the battles together. This is not a show me what you can do type team anymore. This is a, hey, you've been there, done that before. Now can you get over that hump and get to the promised land? There is no other team in the Eastern Conference currently that hasn't lost as much that is going to do that. Now, we said, when we were doing the Atlantic Division, that we're still scared of Florida. They're still probably going to be the best team out of that division, and they're still scary, and I'd rather not play them. But given all that, this is their best shot. I mean,
you'll take that, man. Of an entire conference, 16 teams, if you're only really scared of 1 or 2 of them, that's not bad odds. That is not bad odds. You take that bet.
Absolutely, every day of the week. And again, it's one of those situations where you have to strike while the iron's hot. You just don't know when you're going to get another opportunity at the Stanley Cup. I mentioned this before. I'll mention it again for those, you might be new. I work on SiriusXM NBA Radio. I'm a lead producer on the channel. One of the hosts that I work with is Antonio Daniels, who is a former player in the NBA. He won the championship in '99 with the San Antonio Spurs. This was his second year in the NBA. He obviously, relished the moment, all that, but he thought, oh, it's easy. Oh, we're gonna get back there. Oh, we're gonna win again. Guess what? Never won again. All of these moments are so fleeting. You really have a thin window to really get there, and not only get there, but also win. Like the everything has to go your way and then some for you to get there. The Rangers have been knocking on the door for years now. Can they do it this time around? This is their best shot, and I would have to think they're going to add at the deadline. That's unless something catastrophic happens, I would think they're going to revise at the deadline. This team is going to be even better than it is now. And this team has Riley Smith instead of Blake Wheeler and Nick Bonino on half a leg. Like this is the best shot they got. And if they can't do it now, when are they going to do it?
The one thing I want to build off of that before we start going position by position, that's kind of an essential component of this. I was talking about before that if you make that final 8 consistently, where you just make the second round, that's one of the criteria here. When you look at Tampa Bay before they broke through, they've been in the conference final, Tampa Bay, 7 times in the last 10 years. You got to get there enough times to eventually have it break your way. And I understand that prior to Tampa Bay breaking through and winning their 2 cups back-to-back, there were a lot of conversations about whether or not to blow that core up. Very clearly, you're talking about a group that had 3 or 4 future Hall of Famers. This Rangers team is a smidge below that. There's maybe 2 guys on this team, and that's maybe because some guys not having long enough peaks, etc. But as far as where they're at, if you consistently keep making it second round conference finals over and over again, eventually you're going to get the odds to break your way. And that's the logic here. Florida, same deal. Florida went to a second round. They beat Tampa Bay a couple of years ago. They went to a cup final. They lost. You look at Vegas. They went to a cup final. They went to the playoffs every year, but one for a 6-year period. They eventually broke through. The Blues, they went to the playoffs for 6 out of 8 years. They broke through. Washington, they won 2 President's trophies, made it to a conference final once, but then eventually finally broke through. Pittsburgh, between their first cup and the second 2, they made the playoffs a handful of times, got to a second round, a third round, etc. This is what you have to do. And I know it sounds unglamorous to say, well, our goal is just to make the playoffs and we need to see if things break right for us. That's the way hockey is.
Yep.
Hockey is so random and so high variance that you need as many kicks at this can as you possibly can. And that's why, and as we start to transition to talking about the position groups, that's why we were reticent 2 years ago when the Rangers pushed a bunch of chips in on a team that had just broken through for the first time. You make a conference final. Okay, I understand why you want to spend some money and improve the roster, but the counterpoint to that is, don't you want to have as much flexibility as you possibly can? Because you got to take care of your in-house guys. And the Rangers have done that. You gave Zibanejad an extension. You gave Fox an extension. You're going to start to have conversations. Shesterkin, they're working on, obviously, but we're 2 years away from Kreider and Panarin summer, where that will be a fundamental closing of a door. Those guys 2 years from now will not be expected to be key contributors. Could they still be very effective hockey players? Yes. But I don't think anyone expects a 35, 36-year-old Panarin and a 34, 35-year-old Kreider to play top 6 minutes on bona fide Stanley Cup contenders. That's just something that doesn't happen anymore. You don't get guys in that age group who are effective first-line players.
Unless you're Joe Pavelski.
Well, Joe Pavelski, it was different, though, because he was riding shotgun with guys who were half his age. He had Wyatt Johnston playing with him, who's like 21 years old, and that makes it a little bit easier. The Rangers don't have that silver bullets, man. The Rangers don't have, like, as much as everyone keeps trying to talk themselves into Brennan Othman, we're going on a second straight year where he hasn't really impressed all of that much, and he's going to go back to the AHL, and he'll put up fine AHL numbers, but I'm not sold on him as a top 6 contributor going forward. And Gabriel Perreault is probably at least one more season away from that being even a consideration of him being on the NHL roster, let alone being a top 6 player. So they don't really have the solutions that a Stars had, that maybe, say, a Jets might have. Like, as much as we make fun of the Jets for Hellebuck and Scheifele, they do have Brad Lambert. They did trade McGrody for Yeager. Like, they have tried to find that next wave of young guys. Yeah. The Rangers have yet to really, I don't want to say elevate those guys, but like Miller, Lafreniere, Kako, Heedle, like I'm not necessarily sold on any of those guys as key contributors on a great team yet. They very well all could be, but we talked about it a few weeks ago and we can start talking about individuals now. Eventually there comes a point where Keandre Miller is just what he is. Philip Heedle just is what he is. Capo Caco, Alexi Loff, these guys, Braden Schneider, they are what they are at a certain point. There isn't a continuing improvement in their potential returns. Eventually their production plateaus, their value plateaus. So talking about the Rangers, talking about their forward group, we all know here, no one, unless you've been living under a rock for the last 5 to 10 years, you understand the Rangers' issues. Kreider and Zibanejad are really good regular season players. They have good underlying numbers in the playoffs, in the regular season. And then when they get to the playoffs, they start to get caved in. I'm just going to read you the baseline stats. In the regular season, last 3 years, 51% of the scoring chances, 58% of the goals, 52% of the expected goals, 52% of the high danger chances. In the playoffs, 44% of the scoring chances, 58% of the goals, 39% of the expected goals, 32% of the high danger chances. That's the split. That is the difference between the Rangers in the regular season and the playoffs. And look, I know people were on Panarin for the conference final performance. He was the only line that was going at 5-on-5. While he individually was only getting assists and secondary assists, at least his line was having the puck and trying to make some offense.
Yeah.
And I understand that this isn't just those two, that they've had a revolving door of right wingers and they have yet to find the right guy. But it's when you go look through the numbers over the last 3 years, you compare that line to Panarin's line to whatever configuration of the third line you want. That line has been the line that has struggled in the postseason the most at 5-on-5. And it is unquestionably the Rangers' biggest question mark. I don't understand how people are confused about this.
I don't either. And it's just people need to be honest with themselves. And I think that is the biggest barrier to entry for a lot of people, because you see Zibanejad do the things that he does on the power play, or you just, you take a look at his stats on paper, and then you take a look at, Panarin, who destroyed all the numbers in the regular season. And yeah, I mean, he didn't score as much as you would have liked to, but he was, like you said, one of the 3 people that was actually doing anything at 5-on-5 in the conference finals. So I mean, it's tough. It's tough to put a lot of blame on Panarin when he's, again, one of 3 people that is actively creating things offensively when everybody's on the ice at the same time. The conversation that people have to have with themselves is, what matters to you more? Is regular season wins more important? Is regular season stats more important? Or is playoff success more important to you? Winning the President's Trophy is great. Sure. No one's arguing that winning more games than not is a good thing. That's fine. You have to do that in the playoffs. You just have to. And I know it's easy for me to be like, oh, well, just do it in the playoffs. Easy. Like, come on. But I know it's easy for me to say that, but we have a lot of stats now. It's not just a one-off of top Rangers forwards. When they need a goal, they don't get it done. They don't get it, especially at 5-on-5. Maybe during the power play, maybe they can do something. But even then, the Rangers are still looking for a 5-on-5 guy that plays top 6 minutes. Maybe if it's with Zibanejad or Kreider. I know Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere did, amicably well at 5-on-5 in the playoffs, but Zibanejad and Kreider, at a certain point, like I understand that they lack a right winger. I understand that. I get all that. At a certain point, Mika Zibanejad, you make $8.5 million a year. Go score a goal. Like it's we talked about this so many times before, but it's one of those things where he has the talent to do it. That's the most frustrating aspect of it. And Kreider could do it too. We saw it against Carolina. He did it by himself. I understand Freddie Anderson kind of helped him along the way. I get that. Like, that third period was not Freddie Anderson's best performance. Fully, on the same page with you there. But Chris Kreider said, we are not losing this game. We are not having a game 7, and went out and scored a hat trick in the third period of a game 6. Like, that was unreal. He has the ability to do that. Zibanejad also has the ability to do that. He scored 5 goals against the Capitals a couple of years ago. He has the talent. But the most baffling aspect of this is that they don't use their talent as much as they should. And it's, again, it's so easy for me to say that, simply just go score a goal. I mean, come on, how hard could it be? Like, I get that. But when you're a prime forward on the roster, when you are a top 6 forward, when you're making all this money, you are expected to deliver when the team needs you to deliver. If the team needs you to deliver at 5-on-5 and you have shown year in and year out that you are incapable of doing that, then why are you making the kind of money and why are you getting the kind of ice time that you are getting? Those two things cannot go side by side. If you're a power play guy, okay, well, we're going to slide you down to the third line, have somebody else play top 60 minutes, and then you'll just quarterback the power play and do all of that. But like Zibanejad is way too good to drop down the lineup. Okay, well then let's see it. We need the 5-on-5 offense. I don't know how many times you have to say it, Nick. I have to say it for, and like there has to come a certain point where things change at even strength. Otherwise, we're going to have a repeat of last season, but this time around, it's going to be mayhem contract-wise.
It is a style issue. This is well known. Kreider and Zibanejad are at their best when they're off the rush. When they have to work for their offense, they're not particularly effective. When they have to cycle, when they have to move the puck multiple times to string together a decent offensive chance, Zibanejad either overpasses it or he forces a shot he shouldn't take. You go back and watch the series against Florida, he is taking atrocious scoring chances when he does shoot the puck. He is shooting into people's shins from 35 feet away because he feels the pressure of, I got to get a shot off, instead of trying to maintain that offensive zone time. And look, I understand that they are playing a lot of their minutes with Trouba and Miller, at least they have over the past 3 seasons, and neither of those guys is doing a whole lot to help you tilt the ice in your favor. But if you are as good as you are supposedly are, as for somebody who makes that much money, who, if you go by the official narrative, the Rangers say they chose him over Jack Eichel. If you want to go by that, then you don't need your team's best defenseman to drive offensive possession. You don't need Adam Fox. If you are as good as you supposedly are, you don't need Adam Fox to tilt the ice for you. And it is frustrating because we are here 3 years removed, and Zibanejad is only going to continue to decline. He is older. And look, could he have a nice bounce back season? Could he not go 2 months without scoring at 5-on-5? Yes. But it frustrates me to no end when people pretend they don't understand how basic statistics work. Guys do not improve at 32 years old. If you're Chris Kreider, maybe, but everybody else, no. Everybody else, you have a gradual decline. And you saw it last year. Zibanejad was wholly ineffective at 5-on-5 for good stretches of the season. And look, I know people like to gas up his defense. He is not nearly as good at defense as the people who cover the Rangers tell you he is. He is not. He is not Barkov. He's not Heischer. He is not that tier of defensive forward. Is he above average defensively? Yeah, sure. He is not a Selke caliber forward, and he never has been. Anybody telling you that is doing it based on the same logic of, he kills penalties, so he must be good at killing penalties. Just because you're out there against the other team's best forward does not make you good at defense. It just means you happen to be out there. Go and look at the splits. And look, I know Barkov, I think his line only had 1 goal at 5-on-5 against Zibanejad. The shares were 65-35. 65% of the possession in those minutes. And yeah, it's great that they only conceded 1 goal. Does Shesterkin get credit for that? No, he doesn't. Zibanejad gets credit for playing great defense. Easy. Right. And it's not a fair allocation of responsibility because, like we always talk about, man, as if your team fundamentally is coming down to, we need to win every game 2-1 or 3-2, you're not a very serious hockey team. And in the regular season, it's fine. You heard the splits for scoring chances. When the Rangers are playing the Blue Jackets, Zibanejad and Kreider can kill them. When they're playing the Blackhawks, they can kill them. When they got to go against Gus Forsling and Aaron Ekblad, they're not generating shit. There's a real difference here that you need to understand. And a lot of people gave me a lot of shit going into the conference final when I said the Rangers are leveling up in competition here. We've consistently beat the Hurricanes regular season and playoffs over the last 4 or 5 years. We don't beat teams like Florida in the playoffs. We don't beat teams like Tampa because they have 3 to 4 lines that play a cycle-based possession game that wear you down. The Rangers want to turn every game into an up and down, back and forth, and that doesn't work at a certain point. We said it during the Cup final. If it doesn't work for Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, it's not going to work for Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck. And look, Trocheck had the year of his life last year. I think he's definitely unlocked a little more of his game. But if you want to get a reason to be excited for this Rangers team, in theory, you actually have a good third line on paper. Yeah. If Hedl is healthy, you have Kakko and Cooley. And look, I know a lot of people did not like Wenberg's tenure with the Rangers. Their underlying numbers for what they were asked to do were great. Yeah. Wenberg, Kakko, and Cooley, when they were out there, they did a great job possession-wise. Did they score enough goals? No. But you didn't bring in Alex Wenberg to generate offense.
It's really interesting that people like to throw shade at Wenberg for not providing the offense. When first of all, like you said, he wasn't brought here to score goals, and two, if you're throwing shade at Alex Wenberg, where's the shade at the top guys that didn't score? Where is it? That doesn't make any sense to me. That's very strange to me. That okay, the new guy who was supposed to be for some reason your top line winger, that didn't work out. Who he was never a top line winger to begin with. Okay, so you drop him down the third line, and he played well. Like his main goal, his main positive, like his main strength is defense. He's a defensive-minded forward, and he does that really well. You saw that on the third line in the playoffs. When those three were together, they weren't scoring a bunch, but the other team wasn't exactly scoring a whole lot either. Like it was a really solid third line for what it was worth. So if you're gonna hate on Wenberg for not scoring, you can't hate on Wenberg, but you can't not say anything about the top guys that are getting paid a lot more money to not score. I mean, what you can't have your cake and eat it too. I mean, come on.
Last year in the playoffs, Cooley, Kakko, Wenberg, 75 minutes at even strength, 54% of the scoring chances, 66% of the goals. That's kind of misleading. It was 2-1 goals, 4 goals against. Sure. 63% of the expected goals, 64% of the high danger chances. They had the puck a lot in the other team zone. They got heat on the goalie. If that's what your third line is giving you, you can work with that. And in theory, if you have Hedl, who adds a level of dynamicism to his game that Wenberg doesn't have, that Kakko doesn't have, you should, in theory, be able to have a third line that can give you a little bit more. And we're going to talk about the fourth line in a minute, and I'm going to make a resounding declaration as far as Matt Rempe discourse goes during that conversation. But this third line is the best third line the Rangers have had coming into a season, maybe ever. Like on paper, this third line should be highly functional, be able to drive possession, and Hedl's got a goal scoring touch that Wenberg, Kakko, Cooley don't have. And look, I think Cooley definitely hit a physical wall as the season went along. First full NHL season, definitely around that 50-game mark, he started to not look as lively, not look as energized. But I do think a full off season, building himself up, knowing the rigors and the grind of an NHL regular season, he'll be a little better situated to be effective in the playoffs. Because we can be honest, he wasn't great in the playoffs, but he was, a kid. He's building up and learning what it takes to be a pro. And then, all right, you are not going to get an honest answer about the fourth line from anyone because everybody likes this. This is fun. And no one wants to shit on fun. Everybody wants to be vibes. Everybody likes him. The guys on the team like him. The coach likes him. The front office clearly likes him. But look, if the coach consistently has to say, oh, he's not a sideshow, he's here to play hockey more than once, I think we can. That's the thing. Yeah. When we have to consistently go out of our way to say, well, no, he's not a sideshow, he's here to play hockey, you are telling on yourself. You are being disingenuous. It's, my fourth line left winger who only fights sure asking a lot of questions. And look, it would have been nice if the Rangers had him in rookie camp because he needs to play. It looks like he's going to make the opening night roster because of injuries. But we cannot do a full season of him playing 8 minutes a game. We can't. Yeah. We cannot do that. That is not a viable strategy in today's NHL. If he can play 12, 13 minutes a game and not get his doors blown off, great, he can stay. If not, Edstrom's been better. I'll just put my hands up and say it. Edstrom has been a more functional hockey player at the NHL level, and he still's got that size. He still forechecks, and he still plays with that edge that everybody claims they want from Matt Rempe. So, in my opinion, especially with no VZ now, with no VZ for a few weeks, and you're looking at a fourth line with some permutation. I think the group this morning here, I made a little graphic. This is the group from this morning. Rempe, Carrick, Yuck, and then Brodzinski. So with that in mind, that's not going to be a great fourth line. You really need VZ back as soon as you can, because VZ's been a really good fourth liner for them for the last 2 seasons. And in an ideal world, you go out and get a fourth line center at the deadline in an ideal world, because I do think that matters. As you saw in that Florida series, they were asking their top guys to play a lot of minutes because Laviolette did not want to play those bottom 6 guys. And I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think you can have Rempe play 7 minutes a game. Playing Blake Wheeler in that one game for the 5 minutes he played, that was really stupid. That was objectively, that was really stupid. He wasn't ready to play. He wasn't in game shape. And you can say what you want about, trying to spark the team, whatever. If the team needs these gimmicky tricks to get them excited, at a certain point, we can say they're not as good as we think they are. If they need gimmicky tricks like Rempe going out there to fight or Rempe knocking someone's head off, at a certain point, Mika Zibanejad's 32 years old. If he can't get fired up to play in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that's a Mika Zibanejad problem as opposed to we need this type of energy in the lineup. And I want Rempe to be good. I would love Rempe to be a functional hockey player, to be able to play 12, 13 minutes a game. And look, I know there was some conjecture about him killing penalties a few weeks ago. If he's killing penalties, we're in deep shit, friends. I hate to be that guy, but there are people out there who skate at not at Hudson Yards. What am I thinking of? Not Hudson Yards. Why can't I think of the name of if there are people who skate at Wallman Rink in Central Park. Yeah, I was thinking of Chelsea Piers. I couldn't think of the name. Thank you. There are people skating at Wallman Rink who go in a straight line faster than Rempe. It's a cute story. It's very fun. Teams that win the Stanley Cup do not have a guy like this in their lineup anymore. They just don't.
Here's the thing. I'm a big fan of hoping that Matt Rempe becomes a functional NHL player, as I'm sure you are.
Yeah.
And as I'm sure everybody that's watching and listening.
We were bounding the desk last year. Yeah. We clinched a playoff spot in March. Give him 12, 13 minutes a game. He needs to figure it out.
Here's the thing. We all want him to be successful. We all want him to be a good player at the NHL level. You cannot, at the same time, and you mentioned this a second ago, you cannot at the same time talk out of both sides of your mouth. You cannot say with a straight face that Matt Rempe is a key addition to the roster. He is a guy that you cannot take out, that he's effective at what he does, that he is a good functional hockey player, and at the same time play him 4 or 5 minutes of hockey. You just can't do it. You cannot say both of these things cannot be true at the same time, because if he was a functional NHL player, he would have more trust from the coaching staff. You cannot, in a Game 5 or a Game 6 or whatever game he was scratched for, you cannot scratch that same guy that you were hyping up a second ago in favor of of another player who's not only old and slow and can't play hockey all that well anymore. My man's came back from destroying his leg and was not near game shape in the slightest. But you're telling me this is the same guy that is ready to play a bunch, 12, 13 minutes at the NHL level, and he is a solid foundational piece of the core. You cannot say both of these things at the same time. They cannot possibly be both true. Either, and we were talking about this when the Rangers clinched the playoff spot, you mentioned this, either you give him the 12, 13 minutes and see if he can sink or swim, or you don't play him at all.
Yeah.
There's none of this like wishy-washy.
Especially when you had Brodzinski last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Who is a functional NHL player.
There really shouldn't be this wishy-washy, type of attitude where, he's, the guys love him, so he should be in the lineup. If he's good enough to play him. If he's not good enough to play, don't play him. Like, it shouldn't be, rocket science for people to figure. And I understand, when you're a head coach, you have to balance a lot of things. You have to balance chemistry. You have to balance vibes. I get all that. If he is not good enough to play at the NHL level, you do not play him at the NHL level. It's as simple as that. You find somebody else. Edstrom has played well in the preseason. You want to play him? That's fine. If you want to give Othman a few games, play him. That's fine. Brett Berard hasn't played all that in the preseason, but if you want to give him a few games, just so he can, try his luck against actual NHL talent, fine, give him a try. But you can't, with a straight face, tell me that this guy, who I mean, he's great. Like as a human being, I love Matt Rempe. Like he's fun. He's a goofy goober, and I wish him the best of luck and success. But if he is not good enough to play at the NHL level consistently every single game, 12, 13 minutes, what have you, then why is he on the roster? I get that he's fun. I get the fans love him. I get the teammates love him. I get all that. That's all fine and dandy. And I would rather people love him than not love him, sure. But at the most fundamental base of all of this, if Matt Rempe cannot play hockey at the NHL level, and you don't trust Matt Rempe to play hockey at the NHL level, he should not be on your roster. That's it. That's as simple as that.
I love this perception that's out there that the Rangers care what the public thinks. Like, the Rangers have told us to go F ourselves so many times with lineup stuff like this, whether it's Tanner Glass, whether it's Ben
Yep.
Harper, just outright insulting our intelligence, telling us, no, we know what we're doing, playing ineffective hockey players. And the last thing I'll say about Rempe, I'm not doing this for 82 games, friends.
I agree.
This is my definitive. I don't think he's ready to be an everyday NHLer. He needs more work. If the Rangers are going to play him, he is subject to the same amount of scrutiny that anybody else would be. What did Gerard Gallant say? This isn't a developmental league. If it's not a developmental league for Brennan Osman or Brett Berard, it's not a developmental league for Matt Rempe. So we can't be doing double standards because we like someone. All right, that's it on forwards. Looking at the defense, no Lindgren for the first few weeks is definitely a problem. I don't know what the plan is, frankly, because today Miller was skating with Fox with the actual NHL team, but Mancini's been getting looks with Fox. We know
He's looked good, by the way.
He looks like he can skate well enough to stay at this level, which is really all I need from a replacement. You know, don't look too out of place. Don't look lost. And he looks like he can skate well enough to hang around.
I like his stick as well.
Yeah.
I think his IQ. I mean, it's preseason, so I don't want to read too much into it.
Yeah.
But I was at the game on Thursday. I liked what I saw from the things that he did. Obviously, you know, hasn't played any NHL games, so you know he's gonna have to break in the league a little bit. He's gonna make mistakes, sure. But from what I've seen, there's been a lot worse. There's been a lot of worse defensemen that have been knocking on the door of the Rangers blue line over the past however many years it's been. So like at the end of the day, you give Mancini a few games. Lindgren is out. I'd rather Mancini over like Ben Harper, right?
Yeah.
So Lindgren's out. Play Miller with Fox, which has been the pair that we've been screaming about for the past 3 seasons now. Yeah, it would be great if we actually saw that pairing in action. Have maybe Jones with Trouba or Schneider with Trouba, whatever it is, and have Mancini play in the third pairing. See if he's capable. Again, as a member of the New York Rangers staff, whether it be coaching, front office, what have you, this team is going to be a playoff team. You know that. And you are going to win enough games. You're going to get enough points to get there. You know that. Why not, while there's injuries, use that time to try these guys out? Sorry, I'm a little sick, so I apologize. Like, Victor Mancini should get a few games while Lindgren's out. See if he can do it.
Matt Robertson, because Matt Robertson needs to clear waivers if he stays up. So give him 5 games, and we said it the same thing what we just said with the forwards, whether it's Edstrom, Berard, Othman. You got time. You got 82 regular season games. Audition a few guys. If anyone clicks, great. You know that in the back of your head. Right. Oh, we can use this guy later in the season because there will be injuries.
It's only going to help your team, not only for the short term, in case there's injury, sure, but in the playoffs, if your 12th forward isn't working out, you already have in the back of your mind, oh, this guy that we tried before, he showed me a little something. Okay, let's try him. Let's see maybe he can do something, and that sparks the team and we go from there. You have to use this time wisely. You can't, I understand we want all the points. We want the Rangers to win 82 games. I get all that. First of all, ain't no team winning 82 games in the regular season. That's just not happening. I'm sorry to break it to you. But also, this is a bona fide playoff team. So while you have injuries, this is the prime time for you to give Rempe 12 minutes, for you to give Mancini 12 minutes. Put Mancini on the penalty kill. Put him on penalty kill 2 with an experienced defenseman, whoever you want, as kind of like an anchor for him to learn a little bit off of, and see if he can do it. Because again, let's say Lindgren goes down in the playoffs and you need somebody. Oh, okay. Well, Mancini showed that he can do it in the regular season, so let's try him. Let's see if he can do in the playoffs. You already have that baseline understanding of what a player can do for you if they need to, if you call their name. Because otherwise, you kind of have no idea, and you're forcing a square peg into a round hole instead of just trying new things. And that's one of the that's one of the things that I am really interested to see this season is, will that happen? I don't want to see Jake Buncheletters. I don't want to see Ben Harper. I don't want to see these guys. I want to see the Rangers giving these young guys a shot while they can. Because come April, come May, come June, if they get there, they're not giving these young guys a shot if they haven't seen it before. But if Othman is up here for 8 games and he scores 4 goals, okay, well, now you have Brandon Othman. Why, you forget Jake Buncheletters. Oh, Brandon Othman could do it. He's there. Or, insert name here. This is what I want to see. I don't want to see we're just going to inject some guy and have him be at the background and just have him holding on for dear life while he gets 6 minutes a game and we have to keep on double shifting the top 6 and they struggle for air and they can't get anything done. And we lost? Oh, that's news to me. I can't believe we lost. Oh, we'll do it again next year. See if the same thing results in different results. At a certain point, you have to change the formula if you want a different answer.
The defense will be the question mark. It's the same thing it's been for the last 3 years. Until I see Trouba and Miller play well together in the playoffs against good competition, I will be skeptical. Their regular season results are passable. Their playoff results are pretty mediocre. When we're talking about 34% of the high danger chances, 40% of the expected goals against, you're getting peppered. And it's great that Shesterkin is as good as he is and that they don't give up a ton of goals. It doesn't need to be this way. And look, I understand all of the external things here. I understand you pay Trouba a lot of money. I understand he's the captain. Everything we just said about Matt Rempe is true about Jacob Trouba. He is on the team. He is subject to the same amount of fair criticism that is based in evidence about how he plays as any other player. Just because he's the captain, just because he's a nice guy, all that, it's great. We are evaluating hockey players. We are not evaluating people for the spring theater. We're not worried about the personalities of the male and the female lead in the spring Romeo and Juliet. We are trying to win hockey games here. It's great. All of this stuff the Rangers want to do, having the Rangers be at his gallery opening, that's great. All of that is great. Until we win a Stanley Cup, I don't really care about extracurricular activities.
Bro, the New York Knicks were at Julius Randle's school at school opening.
Yeah,
he donated $1.3 million, and the Knicks were all there.
Yeah,
Thibs was
Adam
there.
Silver was there. Yeah,
everybody from the Knicks was there. And you know what? 2 days later, he was traded. It's all great. And we try not to forget about these things, right? These are people. They do good things for the community. Hopefully they're great people off the ice. But we are talking specifically about their on ice performance, and this is another time for us to highlight this. Is when we're talking about Jacob Trouba missing another defensive assignment, or we're talking about Zibanejad again having a streak of not scoring a 5-on-5 or what have you, we are not talking about them as people, right? We are exclusively talking about how they are performing on the ice, and if they're underperforming, it is well within our right to criticize their performance, especially given how much money they make a year, what the role is on the team, and what they should be doing on the ice relative to their role. Those are the 3 criteria that we have when we're talking about a player. When Shesterkin didn't play well earlier on the season, we mentioned that. We criticized him for not playing well. It's not we just hate Trouba and Zibanejad. Everybody else is great. We're going to kiss him on the cheek and then, just call it a day. That's not what we do here. When players play well, we highlight how well they're playing. And when they don't play well, we highlight how they're not playing well. This is not a, we just hate this guy because he's not you don't like him particularly. No. we to our knowledge, everybody that's on the team right now is a decent person, off the ice, and we wish them well in their endeavors. But you have to play well on the ice, especially relative to your salary and relative to your role. If you are a top four defenseman in the NHL making $8 million, you got the captaincy on your sweater, but you constantly have defensive issues and you chicken wing players instead of trying to play, defense, especially in that game 6 where it was a 2-on-2 for Florida. And instead of defending the 2-on-2, you go to chicken wing somebody, you miss, it's a 2-on-1, and then Florida scores. Like, you can't, you make $8 million a year. You're the captain of the team, and that's the play you make. Absolutely, unequivocally unacceptable. And we will call that behavior out because it's the wrong play 100 out of 100 times, and he knows that, but he does it anyway. Like, if somebody's having a great year or a great play or a great week, whatever, we will highlight that. But it goes both ways, and it's something that I want you, the viewer, you the listener, to take away from this. If nothing else, you have to be objective when it comes to on ice performance. If a player isn't playing well, or if that was a strange play that they made, or if it led to a turnover, okay, you have to note, okay, that was a turnover, that was a bad play. Okay, we'll see if that continues. If it's a one-off, it's a one-off. Obviously, not everybody's going to play flawless hockey for 82 plus games. Everybody's going to make mistakes, but you have to watch these things objectively. You cannot say, "Oh, I have this guy's jersey, so I'm going to blindly cheer for him." You can't do that.
Well, no, I won't say that. I won't say that. I'm not going to tell other people how to choose how they feel about people or cheer or boo, how to be a fan.
Let me rephrase that a little bit. If you want to be objective about the team that you are supporting,
because these are two different things. Because not everybody is like us, who's talking about this from a media perspective.
I misspoke a little bit. If you want to just be a fan and just root for the players, and you do what you're well within your right to do that, sure. But if you want to have an unbiased view of the team and their pros and their cons, their strengths and their weaknesses, and why you think X and Y could be better, or hey, maybe this guy could, this guy's having a great year. Oh, this is why. Or hey, this player isn't doing so well, and this is why. If you want to get into the weeds like we are, if you really want to get into the whys and the hows, you have to be objective. If you just want to be a fan, that's perfectly fine. You go ahead and you do that. But to really fundamentally understand what you're watching, you cannot take sides in this. You have to be as objective as you possibly can be. Otherwise, you make decisions that don't end up going well for you.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of this, and we're going to start wrapping up. We'll talk about the goalies real quick and get out of here. But it is a long season. I don't want to do 82 games of Rempe Trouba discourse. I don't. They're going to win 45 to 55 regular season games. They're going to be very good in the regular season. They will probably get a reasonably favorable first round matchup. There is no point in arguing over things that are not going to change. We know how the coaching staff and the organization feel about Trouba. We know he strong-armed them into staying one more season. It's not getting changed. He's not getting traded in season. Arguing about it is not solving anything. Talking about this as a philosophical endeavor, yeah, we can point things out and try and convey, this is the play, this is what they're supposed to do, this is what they're not supposed to do. But ultimately, sitting here and arguing about it isn't going to get us any closer to our goal. So, keeping that in mind, we'll talk about the goalies real quick and get out of here. Shesterkin's going to start 50 to 55 games. If he starts less than that, he's hurt and the team's probably screwed. I would not bank on Jonathan Quick being great again.
Yeah.
Can he win you 10 games as a backup? Yeah. Jonathan Quick wins 10 of his 24, 25 starts. That's not great, but that's reasonable. Those are reasonable expectations. Sure. You think Shesterkin's going to start something in the neighborhood of 50 to 55 games, so that gives Quick 25 to 30-ish games in that ballpark. If he can win you close to half of them, that's great. If he wins you more than half of them, that's outstanding. The team will go as far as the goalie can go. They still have yet to address their 5-on-5 issues. The goalie contract discourse is going to be insufferable if it doesn't get solved by next Wednesday.
Yeah.
If they don't pay him, they need to reevaluate the entire team, because if they have just an above average goalie as opposed to an elite goalie, they're not going to be a very good hockey team.
They'll pay
He
him.
is the magic eraser.
They'll pay him.
I don't think this is a conversation. I think the Rangers know how their bread is buttered. It's why they gave Hank a contract that maybe wasn't the best in terms of the long-term vision. But yeah, Shesterkin is their most important player.
Yeah.
He deserves to reset the goalie market. And he is their essential player. And most importantly, and I saw people talking about this morning in regards to Hellebuck, he's been their best playoff player too. It would be one thing if we were talking about Bobrovsky going into Florida, where he hadn't really put together a great playoff run in Columbus or with the Flyers, where he has paid his dues. He deserves to be the highest paid player at his position. I think going into the season, the argument is him or Hellebuck, and then there's a little bit of a drop down, and you could add Saros and a few other people there. But Shesterkin's one of the best goalies of this window, of the last 5 years. The Rangers need to pay him, and if they don't, they will rue the consequences.
I actually think that not only is Shesterkin going to get paid, like, this is probably not as big of an issue as some people would like to think it is, because again, not only is the salary cap going up, but I understand like it's not going up as much as we'd like it to, and $12 million now it looks a lot worse than it will a few years from now. But also, okay, you give Shesterkin 12 over I forget how much he's making now, but and then you subtract the 8 that Trouba makes now, because he's going to get dealt after this offseason.
Well, not all 8. They might have to eat some of it. So at least,
let's say 5, 6, whatever, whatever it is, subtract that. That's most of the issue gone. Yeah. Like, that's most of the issue gone with that. And then salary cap's going to go up a little bit. I'm sure there's going to be some other changes as well. Like, yeah, $12 million does not look good now, but I kind of think it's not as big of an issue as people like to think it is.
No, because the cap's going to keep going up 5 or 6 million a year going forward, now that there's actual revenue growth. And the one good thing about the owners doing a greedy round of expansion that there's no need for is that they will get placated and get a little bit of extra money. So in theory, that when we do revenue projections for the next season, they're going to be a little less inclined to be, for the lack of a better word, stupid about it, because that's all this is when we're talking about cap growth and revenues. Is owners need to put money back into their teams. If they don't, the revenue growth will not be as big as they should be, and everyone makes less money. So they will pay Shesterkin. It's simply a matter of, will they get it done now, or is this going to linger over the season awkwardly? We will be back tomorrow with Sam Rosen, so we don't want to dwell too much.
Eastern time.
4 p.m. Eastern time live. It'll be available on all the platforms after the fact, edited, all the bells and whistles like our normal episodes. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. If you could be so kind, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave the show a 5-star review. If you're watching over on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the alarm bell so you get a notification whenever new content goes live. Leave us a comment. What are your expectations for this season? How realistic do you think winning a Stanley Cup is? What do you think about the futures of Shesterkin, of Trouba? Is Matt Rempe an every game player? Let us know down in the comments. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.